The East African Revival stands out as one of the most profound and far-reaching spiritual movements to ever sweep across the African continent. Born in the early 1930s within the Church of Uganda, this movement quickly spread to Rwanda, Kenya, Tanzania, and beyond, transforming lives, renewing the church, and deepening the personal faith of countless believers.
My experience of the East African Revival started when I came to know Christ in 1967. That's a few years ago now. But when I was brought up in my home in Pakwach in Nebi, the revivalists who passionately preached the gospel, some of them were church teachers in my own parish, others were roaming evangelists who were moving up and down. At the time, the outstanding thing about the revival was a passion for the gospel. People loved Jesus enough to not keep quiet. In buses, in markets, by roadside, they are proclaiming the gospel. When you find two people meeting who are believers, they are praising to Kutendereza, they are hugging each other, visible love, visible passion, and there was so much excitement about the faith, and I saw it. It transformed many things, but if we think about the beginning of this thing from Gahini into Kigezi and Ankole and the rest of Uganda, I believe that in Kigezi, when it was still strong and passionate, over to Ankole, because then it was the same diocese, Kigezi Ankole diocese, or Ankole Kigezi diocese, it has impacted people there so much. How names changed. And even up to today, the names from the western part of Uganda honors God in many ways. Unlike mine up northwestern part of Uganda, work ethics changed. People worked harder because they wanted to honor God. They wanted to have food in their house. They wanted their children to get educated. They wanted relationship in the family to be strong and firm. And up to today, the Balokole family are the family that holds together. They pray together. They study the word together. And because of that, many of the children, the product of revival, who are now in high places in this country, have the influence of that revival propelling them to where they are. It changed the scope of life in Western Uganda, some of it in Central Uganda, a little bit in Eastern Uganda. Up north, the revival movement did not have the impact it has in the Western Uganda. But when I came to know Jesus Christ, the most important thing that was very evident was we walked in the light, meaning we are open to each other, we never hid anything. Two, we shared the word, and then we studied the word, and then fellowship was very paramount. So even as a young person, I grew up in my faith because these elderly people held my hands and gave me the desire to follow Christ, which is fantastic. The inheritance that I have received from the revival movement keeps me going up to today, keeps my family also around the Word of God, around prayer, and around being together as a family, which is an inheritance from the revival movement. I think the power then, like a river which begins, for example, let's look at Owen Falls Dams. We have the river leaving the Lake Victoria. After the Owen Falls Dam going to Bujagali, the river is flowing very fast. After Bujagali going on, the river is flowing very fast. Go to Karuma, it's flowing very fast. Go to Machishon Falls, it's flowing very fast. As it enters Lake Albert and then turns around to go down to Egypt, it's slowing down. Slowing down, but still flowing, but slowing down. Every movement starts extremely at a very high note. As it keeps going, it slows down. It moves, but it slows down. And the analogy of the river is what I want to say. Today, the revival movement has still got the power, the influence, but I have lived through the early years of the 60s, on the 70s, 1971, when Amin took power. That was the biggest attack on the morals of people. You're talking about corruption, it was then. So when money began to be the focal point of many people, most people's faith began to get lukewarm. People were all wanting to get rich. And there was a terminology they used in the 70s called mafuta mingi. People without bellies began to push their tummy to look like they're rich people and the rest of it. That's normally where the problem starts. When men begins to follow money, you have a problem. Today, we are having revival, Balokole churches. Balokole churches by name. Why? Because the impact of those churches on morals is not there. We have number without impact. Why? Because I don't think that the kind of strict ethical codes that the revivalists had then is no longer being followed. The way of life that people lived, because at that time, you want your faith to affect your everyday life. I don't see it today. What is happening? The revival is there. The revival is slow. The revival is impacting people, but I think a lot of compromise is coming.
The East African Revival, which is commemorated every 10 years, will celebrate 90 years in 2025. This milestone event is scheduled to take place from the 20th to the 24th of August at the convention site in Kawali. Held under the theme, Let Us Fix Our Eyes on Jesus from Hebrews chapter 12 verse 2, the gathering will once again rekindle the flame that started decades ago and continues to shape the spiritual landscape of East Africa.